I'm Stacy from Hello Stitch Studio, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own face mask from our pre-cut face mask kit. So go ahead and open up your kit, and what you'll need for your first mask is you'll need your pin card. It has the straight pins and it also has one needle. You'll need one sheet of fabric and you'll need one spool of thread to start. Additionally, a little bit later, you're going to need 2 of these 36-inch twill tapes, and you'll need a pen or a pencil, as well as just a regular ruler. So let's get started. First off, what I want to do is fold my piece of fabric in half so that it creates almost a square. It's not quite a square, but almost. And what I'm going to do now is mark where I actually want to sew. This will make it easier for you to go around. And I want to just go in about 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. And I'm just kind of guesstimating here. It's not essential to get this exactly perfectly 1/2 inch. I'm just kind of guessing. And I'm just drawing a line all the way around with my pencil, or you can also do it with a ballpoint pen. So now you can see I have a line that goes all the way around at the outside edge. So the next thing we're going to do is just take our pins, and I'm just going to pin along the outside edge just to help me hold my 2 pieces of fabric together as I'm stitching. You may find that you don't need the pins and you're welcome to take them out, but they might be helpful, so just give it a try. Alright, so I have my pins all around the outside edge, and now I want to grab my needle and thread. Pull out your needle and find the end of your piece of thread. And I want to pull off maybe about no more than 18 inches worth of thread. If you pull off more than that, it ends up tying itself into knots and getting very tangled. So we want about 18 inches. I'm also going to take the thread that I pulled from the front of the spool and just clip it. So I have a nice sharp point there, which is going to really help when I go to put it through the eye of the needle. And you always want to put the thread that came off the front end of the spool through the eye of the needle, because thread is directional. So if you were to put the end piece of thread in, it just ends up tying a lot more knots while you're sewing, which can be very frustrating. All right, so I went ahead and put the thread through the eye of the needle, and I want to pull it down so it's maybe the ends is about halfway down, if you can see that. Okay, so now what I want to do is tie a knot on the end of my piece of thread, not the piece that I just put through the eye of the needle, but the tail end. And I'm going to do that by holding the thread between my 2 fingers and just wrapping the thread around my index finger. Do that about 3 or 4 times. You'll then just roll the thread that's wrapped around your index finger off the end of your finger and just kind of use your fingernails to pull it tight. And that should create a knot. See mine? It's not very pretty, but it'll work just fine. This is all going to be on the inside of your mask anyway, so this knot is not going to show at all. Don't worry about it. All right, we are going to start sewing. We're going to use a stitch called a back stitch because it's really going to hold your pieces of fabric together and keep them secure. I'm going to show you how to do it. And we are going to sew all around along our pencil line, but we need to leave a space to turn our fabric right side out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start about 3 or 4, well, about 3 inches up from the folded edge of my fabric here. So we're going to start by coming up from the back side of the project. Pull your thread all the way through so that the knot is nice and tight. And then we want to just secure the beginning. So we're going to go over about 1/4 of an inch and down. And then come back up again where your needle had originally come through the fabric. Doesn't have to be exact, just near enough. And then go back down again, okay? And then we're going to want to go over another 1/4 of an inch. And then we're going to go right back into that same spot again, right there. We're going to come right back up here. And then go over 1/4 of an inch, under 1/4 of an inch, and come back up. And go back. And then back up where the needle just came out. Over 1/4 of an inch, under, go backwards, and back up again where we came out. So this stitch is a bit of a, called a back stitch, modified back stitch, and it's just going to create a nice strong seam for you, hand sewn seam. All right, over 1/4 of an inch, under, back, up, over 1/4 of an inch, under, back, up. Just follow your line of stitching all the way around till you get to the very end. And when you get to the end here, just go to one little back stitch. Just helps keep those corners real secure. I'm going to do the same on the other side, just a little back stitch, a little extra. And then I'm going to keep going. You may find that your thread starts to get twisty, like right here. And what that can end up doing is starting to create knots when you pull it through. One thing you can do to make it so the twist goes away is just let your needle dangle. It's hard to show with this angle, but just let your needle dangle in the air and the thread will untwist and you can keep going. And that helps to prevent some of those knots. And again at the corners, I'm going to do a back stitch there and back stitch here. Now you can see my thread is getting really short and it's going to start just coming out of the eye of the needle, which is going to get frustrating. So pretty soon I'm going to get another piece of thread here. So let me show you how I'm going to end this one. So I did a back stitch there. Then I'm going to go under my thread, pull it through. I'm going to do that again. underneath. I'm just going to go backwards through the loop and pull it tight. I'm going to do that one more time. Backwards through the loop and pull it tight. Then I'm just going to trim, leaving about 1/2 inch of thread there. Get another piece of thread on my needle. Again, you don't want to have more than 18 inches worth of thread because it will knot up. And I'm going to tie the knot, roll it down my finger. And I'm going to come up from the back and start again. I'm going to secure it with a little back stitch at the beginning. And keep on going. Just go right up to the end and do back stitch to secure it, just a little extra stitch here. And then just tie it off like I did before when I had to change thread. So I'm going to go under my line of stitching. I can even just catch a couple of the threads of the fabric if I want to. And then I'm going to just go right through that loop and then pull it slowly tight. See, I've got a little, I got a little knot in there, but that's okay. I'm just going to go back under again. I really actually want it to pull tight. So I'm going to do a couple right there. And I'm all done. All right, so we have our finished fabric for our face mask. I'm going to show you what it looks like on the back. It has different looking stitch on the back than it does on the front. So don't think you did something wrong. It is supposed to look like this on the back. So now we want to turn our project right side out. Do this gently so that our stitches hold together. And we want to poke out the corners as much as we can. If you have a chopstick, you can just put it in the hole and just kind of feed those corner edges out. Just don't poke too much or you might break your stitches. All right. Okay, so then we're still going to have this part here, which isn't all nice and finished like the rest of our piece of fabric. We're just going to take our fingers and push everything inside there. And there we go. So now we need to put pleats into the sides of our mask. We want to put the pleats on the side that we have the opening. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to get my ruler back and I'm going to grab a couple of my straight pins. And I'm just going to measure down 1.5 inches and put a pin in. 1.5 inches down from the top and 1 1.5 from the bottom. Okay. And then I'm going to do that on the other side as well. 1.5 inches from the top and 1.5 inches from the bottom. Okay, so now what I want to do is fold my piece of fabric in half. We'll just start with one side so you can see what it looks like there. And I just want to push it down so that it's pretty even on both sides. And I'm just going to open it up like so. And I'm going to take my pins out and I'm going to pin all of those layers in place so they just don't move. Okay. And this is how it looks on the front there. We're going to do the same on the opposite side. So once you have it all set up, you're going to have a mask that opens like that. Next, we want to put on our twill tape. Each of these is about 36 inches long. So just pick out the first one and fold it in half so you can find the center. You can mark that with one of your straight pins, but you don't have to. It just is approximate. But we're basically just going to want to put the center of our twill tape on the center of our mask. And pin again, hold it in place. I'm actually going to take out this pin and pin again. This is going to hold it all in place for us to sew it down. All right, so now we want to put another piece of thread on our needle. Remembering to put the piece of thread from the front end of the spool through the eye of the needle, not the piece that we just cut there, but the piece here, so that it doesn't cause us lots of knots. And again, tie a knot. I'm not the best at tying these kind of knots. Okay, it doesn't matter though, because what we'll do is we're going to come up underneath the twill tape here to hide our knot. And I'm just going to hide it underneath. Just tuck it under. Tuck my ugly knot under there. And I'm going to go down through all of the layers. Oops. Get my scissors out of here. All of the layers. And I'm going to come back up. This is going to be harder to sew than when we were just doing the fabric because it's going to be a lot of layers all at one time, but just have some patience. And I'm just going to do a few stitches here. This is going to be where it gets the most wear and tear, right at the corners, especially with the twill tape when you tie it on your face. So it doesn't hurt to do a few extra stitches. Okay. Okay, so now holding all of my pieces in place at one time, I'm just going to go ahead and do that same stitch I did before. Go under and back and up, over. And it might be harder to do this under part because we have so many layers of fabric. So what I find helps sometimes to get my needle through is just to hold it down on the table and use the table to help push the needle up. So I'm just pushing it down onto the needle. Over, back, back up. Some of these places you're going to have like 8 layers of fabric, so really it's a lot to get through with your hand. But it's totally doable. My twill tape is slipping a little bit. I want to make sure that it's really on there, and I'm getting through all of the layers. If it helps for you to have a line to stitch on, you can see I'm going kind of all over the place on this. If it helps for you to have the line to stitch on, go ahead and draw it on. Whatever helps you get it done. All right, so we're here at the end again. I'm going to do a few extra stitches. All right, so to secure this line of stitching, I'm going to go to the excuse me, to the back side. Oh, see, it doesn't look very good because it's pretty thick, so don't beat yourself up. It's not going to look perfect. You're not a sewing machine. And I'm going to tie a knot just like I did before on the inside, under the line of stitching, through the loop, under the line of stitching, through the loop. So do that 2 times, and then I'm going to put my needle back and run it just through the 2 layers of fabric for about an inch, inch and a half, and bring the needle back up. So what that's doing is leaving a tail of thread in here so it doesn't come unthreaded, unknotted there and come loose. I'm just going to trim it real close to the fabric edge. Okay, so you can see it's now sewn on. Let's do the other side. All right, now we have both sides of the twill tape done, and our mask is almost finished. The last thing we need to do is the ends of these twill tapes have just been cut. So to secure those so that they don't unravel in the wash, you can just tie a knot. And that'll do it. All right, so we're all done. We've got our finished mask here, and it's ready to go.